Storm De Beul was 22 years old, and he had built his entire life around going further out, not for views, not for sponsorships, not for the kind of outdoor content that layers dramatic music over drone footage and calls it adventure. His YouTube channel, Storm Outdoorsy, was something quieter and stranger than that. No narration, no music, just the sounds of what he was actually doing: wood splitting, snow compressing underfoot, fire catching slowly in cold air. The comments his small, devoted audience left were not the usual YouTube engagement. They were something closer to gratitude, people telling him that watching his videos was the only time in their week when the noise stopped. He understood that feeling better than most social settings drained him. Idle conversation, the kind that fills time without purpose, seemed to push him inward rather than connect him outward. The wilderness offered the opposite, a place where the only demands were real ones. Cold distance, terrain, variables that could be observed, managed, and endured. No performance required, no expectation beyond the immediate. His mother described him as very calm water with very deep soils. That description matters because it tells you what kind of person walks into Lapland in late October alone. Not reckless, not naive, something more complicated. Someone who had found the one environment where he felt entirely himself and who kept returning to it, each time going a little further, staying a little longer, carrying a little less. By 2024, the next step was northern Sweden, the Jokkmokk region above the Arctic Circle, where isolation is measured not in minutes but in hours, and where the environment does not adjust for the people who enter it. He packed what he always packed, a backpack reduced to essentials. His camera, enough equipment to function, but not so much that it removed the edge he was looking for. He didn't file a detailed itinerary, didn't leave a clear route with anyone. From his perspective, this was continuity, another trip, another stretch of silence, an extension of something that had always worked before. From the outside, it was the one variable that might have changed everything. Above the Arctic Circle in late October, autumn doesn't fade, it surrenders. One weather system replaces another, and the land stops negotiating. Temperatures drop below -20. Light contracts to a few gray hours. Wind gains structure and intent. Snow doesn't settle evenly. It builds in layers, drifts, hollows, erases edges. Trails disappear not over days but within hours. Landmarks flatten into the same white surface, and orientation becomes something you have to earn rather than something the landscape provides. Storm moved through Jokkmokk the way he always moved, deliberately, observantly, filming as he went. Wood split, fire caught, camp established. The ordinary mechanics of survival were captured in the same unhurried way that had built his audience. At first, nothing resisted him. The cold was present but controlled. Snow is manageable, wind intermittent, but the environment was already changing underneath that stability. Cloud systems thickened without clearing. Pressure dropped. The air took on a particular weight that anyone who knows Arctic weather recognizes as accumulation. Not a storm arriving, but a storm building, one small change at a time, each one insufficient to demand immediate response, each one quietly altering the outcome of every decision that followed. He sent a video to a friend, half joking about the worsening conditions. The tone was familiar, Storm treating difficulty as something interesting rather than threatening, the way he always had. His friend urged caution. Storm, characteristically, wasn't particularly worried. Then he messaged his grandmother. She had been his steadying force throughout his life, the person he turned to when the world got loud. "It's snowing hard," he told her, "but don't worry, I'll survive." The words were meant as much to calm himself as to reassure her. Outside, the storm was no longer accumulating. It had arrived. By the time Storm understood the full scale of what was coming, he had already committed too deep into the terrain to make turning back straightforward. Distance had been covered. Energy had been spent. The landscape behind him was no longer the same as the one he had crossed. Trails buried, landmarks erased. The route home now requiring the same navigation as the route forward. but with deteriorating conditions and diminishing reserves. So he held position and established his tent, fabric against wind, structure against accumulation, a temporary solution, he knew that, but one that bought time, and time was what he needed. Inside the tent, the environment didn't disappear. It pressed. Wind against the surface, continuous and structural. Snow accumulates on top, adding weight with every hour. Temperature inside hovering just above the threshold, where the body can generate enough heat to compensate for what it's losing. Around 2 a.m., he reached for his phone and sent a message that was controlled in tone but clear in implication. Conditions were worsening. He needed help. The response came quickly. Roads blocked. Air rescue is impossible in active storm conditions. He was beyond reach until the weather broke, and the weather was not going to break for hours. He was alone in a way that even his most isolated previous trips had not prepared him for. The tent gave way sometime after 2 a.m., not all at once. These things happen in stages, the fabric bowing inward under snow load, the poles beginning to strain, wind pushing from one side while accumulation presses from above, the structure losing tension incrementally until the threshold is crossed and what was shelter becomes a trap. When the collapse completed, the boundary between inside and outside disappeared instantly. Snow entered. Wind followed. The minimal heat he had been preserving dispersed in seconds. He gathered what he could, sleeping bag, essential items, nothing that would slow him without justification, and stepped out into conditions that had removed almost every navigational reference he would normally rely on. Visibility measured in meters, wind continuous and directional, strong enough to destabilize footing. Snow knee-deep in places, unstable underfoot, the ground communicating nothing reliable about what lay beneath. No trail, no landmarks, no path back that the storm hadn't already buried. He found a tree, pressed his back against the bark, pulled the sleeping bag around himself and waited for the wind to ease. It didn't ease. Snow continued to build around him. Cold continued to extract heat. Staying in place was shifting from temporary recovery to static exposure, the kind of exposure that ends one way regardless of how long you wait. So he moved again, because moving still carried possibility, and staying had stopped carrying anything at all. What happens to the body in those conditions is not dramatic. It is methodical. Cold doesn't attack. It extracts heat, precision, coordination, judgment, all of it drawn out gradually as the body makes calculated decisions about what to protect and what to sacrifice. Extremities go first. Hands lose precision. Feet lose feedback. What had been cold becomes absence, and absence is worse than pain because pain at least tells you something is still there. The storm kept moving. He fell. Not a full collapse, but the kind of stumble that happens when the body fails to complete a movement sequence it has executed correctly 1,000 times before. He stood again. Slower, less stable, he fell again, hard enough this time to break his nose. The brief warmth of blood was immediate and then gone, freezing on his skin before it could mean anything. He kept moving. Not because he had a destination. Direction had lost meaning. There was no path, no retraceable line, no visual memory of where he had come from. Only the immediate ground, and even that shifted under weight. The body was narrowing its focus now, conserving what it could, simplifying cognition from plans to instructions. Move, stand, correct, repeat. He used the sleeping bag again, wrapped it around himself against the wind. It slowed the loss. It could not stop it. Shivering, which had been constant, began to decrease, not because he was warmer, because energy reserves were gone, and shivering requires energy. When shivering stops in those conditions, it is not a sign of improvement. It is the body removing a warning system it can no longer afford to run. Somewhere in the hours before dawn, movement reduced for the last time. Not as a decision. As a result, Storm De Beul lay face down in the snow, his breath shallow, the storm still moving across the ground around him. His nose was broken, his sleeping bag was with him, but no longer sufficient against conditions that had been extracting heat from him for hours. His backpack was nearly empty. His scattered belongings marked segments of the path he had taken after the tent failed, not a continuous line, but fragments, evidence of direction without destination. Emergency services had his coordinates. The signal had gone out while he was still inside the system. Response had been initiated immediately, but the same storm that had trapped him had sealed the roads and grounded the aircraft, and time extended beyond what it needed to. When rescue teams finally reached him after the storm passed, he was found some distance from where the tent had been. No active movement, no response. He was 22 years old. After the recovery, his father said something that stayed with everyone who heard it. Once the snow thaws in May, I'll walk the path from his tent to where he was found, hoping to recover something from him. Maybe his camera, that camera. The one he had carried into every forest, every frozen landscape, every stretch of silence that had given him what ordinary life couldn't. The one that had captured wood splitting and fire catching, and the unhurried mechanics of a young man doing the thing he loved most, for an audience that watched because the noise stopped when he was on screen. His mother asked only one thing of the people who would tell his story afterward. We don't want to make Storm a hero. We just want him to be remembered as he was. Very calm water, very deep soils. Storm's videos are still online. The comments are still coming in. People who found him after he was gone, who watched the footage of Jokkmokk not knowing how it ended, who stayed for the same reason his original audience stayed. The quiet, the deliberate rhythm, the sense of a person entirely at home in the one place that made sense to him. His last recordings exist the way he always made them. Routine actions, controlled environments, the ordinary mechanics of the life he had chosen. The final stretch, after the tent failed, was not recorded. The camera was somewhere in the snow by then, or in his pack, or simply beyond the point where documentation was possible. What happened after 2 a.m. on that October night exists only in the physical evidence. His searchers found scattered belongings, footprints already half filled by the time the storm eased. The distance between the collapsed tent and where his body lay, that distance was not far. Less than it sounds. In dry summer conditions, on a clear day, with a trail and a destination, it would have been a short walk. In a Lapland blizzard, at night in late October, after hours of exposure, with no visibility and no path and a body already past the threshold where recovery was possible without intervention, it was everything. His mother was right that he shouldn't be made into a hero. He wasn't trying to be one. He was a young man who had found something rare, a place where he felt completely himself, and who kept returning to it, taking it a step further each time, until one October the step was too far and the conditions didn't give him a way back. That's not a story about recklessness. It's not a cautionary tale about hubris or overconfidence or ignoring warnings, though all of those threads are present. It's a story about the specific and irreducible cost of loving something that doesn't love you back. The wilderness gave Storm De Beul everything he needed from it: silence, clarity, the freedom to exist without performance. It gave him a channel that meant something to people, a practice that defined him, the years of exactly the experience he had gone looking for. And then, one night, it applied its conditions without adjustment, the way it always had, the way it always does. It didn't single him out. It simply continued being what it was. He knew that. He had always known it. You can see it in the videos, in the careful, unhurried way he moved through environments that could have killed him and didn't. He understood the terms. He accepted them. He went back anyway, because for him the alternative, a life lived entirely inside the noise, was its own kind of loss. The Jokkmokk region returned to its normal state after the storm passed. Snow settled. Wind resumed its patterns. The terrain did not retain evidence of what had happened there. In spring, the surface would change, reveal some things, cover others. Somewhere under those layers, where the snow still holds from that October, there may still be traces. A path that can be walked from tent to endpoint. A father who said he would make that walk when the ground allowed it. He was looking for a camera. He was looking for his son. The wilderness keeps what it takes, but Storm's videos remain, and the quiet in them, the real, particular, irreplaceable quiet of a young man entirely at home in the cold that doesn't go anywhere. It's still there for anyone who needs it.